What lengths would you go to find your way back to those you love? Golden light spilled sluggishly through the tall canopy of the farmer's market, setting the scattered stalls aglow with a warm, honeyed hue. The afternoon hummed with vibrant life, the chatter of vendors, the shuffle of footsteps on cracked pavement, mingled scents of freshly picked apples, sweet corn, and earth-born spices. Birds wheeled overhead, their wings glittering in the sun, a distant and indifferent chorus to the unfolding turmoil below. Max, a mature golden retriever with a coat weathered by time and flattened wisps of fur catching the breeze, wove carefully between crowds. His soulful eyes, pools of gentle longing, flicked nervously left and right, scanning faces blurred in soft focus. Smudges of dirt marred his fur, and his worn collar hung slightly askew, a tiny locket swinging in hesitant rhythm, a quiet symbol of home, a link to a world that now seemed so far away. The market was cacophony incarnate. Vendors haggling in clipped accents, children squealing in delighted bursts, the intermittent clang of metal as a blacksmith hammered shaped iron, rhythmic and heavy. Max's ears twitched at every new sound, his body tensing, muscles coiling to spring yet tethered by uncertainty. His paws padded softly across weathered stone, each step a search not just for a face, but for a lifeline. Suddenly, a flurry of movement to his left, a group of children chasing one another, carelessly bumping through the narrow aisles. Max's heart leapt with recognition. The scent of the boy who had been his world carried faint but distinct upon the commotion. He broke into a slow trot, weaving through legs and barrels, eyes fixed upon the flicker of auburn hair ahead. But as he approached, the boy disappeared into a tight cluster of adults, the space fracturing into confusion and noise. Faces blurred, voices layered atop one another, and Max's world teetered, disoriented and adrift. The locket on his collar caught a stray sunbeam, glinting a tiny beacon in a sea of chaos. A brusque hand swept past him, dislodging a fruit basket with a loud crash. Apples tumbled freely, rolling beneath startled feet. Max skidded to a halt, the sharp scent of bruised fruit mingling with dust and harsh commands from nearby vendors. "Get that dog out of here!" barked a stern woman, voice cutting through the din. "No pets allowed." Max's ears folded back, tail lowered. Hesitation rippled through him as a dozen eyes turned toward the lone, scruffy figure in a crowd that wanted no part of him. A young girl tugged her mother's hand, whispering wide-eyed, while others grumbled under breath or shot wary glances. The warm glow of afternoon shifted, shadows lengthening, and suddenly, the market's vibrant life felt cold and hostile. Max's jaw tightened imperceptibly, the faintest whimper escaping as the painful realization settled. The boy was gone, hidden or lost in the tide of strangers. The path to home, to safety, felt suddenly impossible, swallowed by untamed, unknowable currents, much like the nearby river rushing beyond the town. The golden light wavered, dissipated, a brief shadow stretched across Max's face as he looked down at the swinging locket, the symbol of a bond he ached to restore. The world around him pressed close, a whirlwind of noise and blurred faces, but within that quiet, the dog felt the tremor of something else, a flicker of resolve beneath the weight of fear. For beneath the cacophony, beneath rejection and confusion, life moved on, unceasing, relentless. And in that moment of tender vulnerability, Max stood poised at a crossroads, the worn locket gleaming softly as a silent promise of hope amid uncertainty. The fading light of golden hour stretched its long fingers across the quiet suburban streets, turning leaves to burnished flames even as a growing dusk crept among the houses. Max's paws, once confident, now tread softly on cracked sidewalks, the thrumming pulse of the lost reverberating in his soulful eyes. He paused at a crooked fence, head tilted as a faint scent teased his nostrils, a hint of home, memory, something blurred but achingly close. His collar, worn and weathered like the lines etched in his scruffy coat, pressed against his neck, the small locket dangling gently near his throat like a fragile talisman. The same locket that connected him to his young owner, to a bond spanning distance and silence. The breeze tousled the locket, and it swung a pendulum of hope and heartache. Max hesitated, nostrils flaring as he tried to pinpoint the scent. The world ahead was unfamiliar streets without familiar footsteps, voices muffled through closed windows, and shadows stretching longer with every passing moment. The golden light crept lower behind the horizon, thickening the air with unease. He wandered aimlessly then, uncertain and small against the vastness of the twilight town. His ears pricked at every distant sound. A dog barking somewhere close, the hurried footsteps of a stranger, the crisp rustle of leaves swept by an autumnal wind. Each noise drew a flicker of anticipation, then disappointment as no familiar face appeared. Max's breathing grew heavier. His heart hammered a staccato rhythm of anxiety and fear. The landscape around him blurred an unfriendly maze of concrete and looming fences where every decision felt like stepping into the unknown. His pause faltered at an intersection, the symbolic crossroads taking shape in a silent, agonizing moment of choice. A cold silence settled deep within him, the loneliness squeezing tighter with every hesitant step. His gaze fell to the locket, so small yet so potent, the unbroken link to a world slipping farther from reach with every passing second. He pressed forward, the slow-motion whisper of his movement carrying both desperation and the faintest glimmer of determination. The sun's last rays painted the tops of trees with fiery orange, casting everything else in shadow, a landscape poised between warmth and cold, light and darkness. Max's pause carried him past familiar signs now distorted by absence, the faded graffiti on a street corner where he used to play, a broken swing swaying in the breeze, their motion echoing memories suspended in time. His eyes filled with unshed tears, reflecting the dying light scattered on cracked pavements and scattered autumn leaves. The locket swayed again, the rhythm matching the quiet beat of resilience awakening beneath the ache. Ahead, the road forked, stretching into two indistinct paths, one veiled in lengthening shadow, the other bathed faintly in lingering sunlight. Max's gaze fixed on the crossroad, a silent plea etched into the twilight air. Beneath the heavy quiet, a new resolve began to flicker, a whisper of hope stirred in the depths where despair had almost taken root. His journey was far from over. The wind picked up, ruffling his coat and carrying with it the scent of something unmistakably familiar, faint but relentless. The locket swung steady now, a tiny beacon in the growing dusk, a fragile promise that the way home still lingered just beyond sight. Max paused, neck arched, breathing in the faint, telling scent as the golden hour bled out and night hummed softly into being. The crossroads awaited a quiet invitation to choose, to begin again. The amber light of the late afternoon sun slowed to a honey drizzle against the quiet streets. Max wandered. His paws brushed fallen leaves, their crunchy surrender releasing faint whispers of the fading summer. Each step carried the weight of loneliness and unspoken yearning, a furrowed path through the sprawling suburbs that now felt alien and unkind. His breath billowed in gentle clouds, mingling with the cool air thick with dusk's approach. The neighborhood, once a gallery of familiar scents and sounds, laughter echoing, the distant bark of a friend's dog, the soft murmur of wind through tree branches, now pressed upon him with sharp edges of silence and displacement. The pulse of his heartbeat was a drumbeat of hope and fear, interlaced and impossible to separate. Max paused at a quiet corner, the crossroads where two streets met under the waning glow of a lamppost. Shadows pooled like ink beneath it, stretching toward him with hesitant fingers. His soulful eyes scanned the darkening world, reflecting a growing storm within the vast, unpredictable wilderness both outside and inside him. With the fading warmth behind, moonlight began to lace the edges of the clouds, soft silver-gray veils rippling across the sky like sighs of a slumbering giant awakening. Max's gaze fell to the small locket seeming to dance against his chest, swaying like a fragile beacon tethered to his heart. Its faint glimmer held silent vows of home, of unbroken bonds straddling the chasm of distance and time. A sudden breeze stirred the leaves at his feet, twirling motes of dust and petals into a fleeting ballet. Max's ears flicked as a distant scent laced the wind, faint, yet familiar, tugging at threads of memory rent but not severed. His nose twitched, nostrils flaring, senses sharpening as if the world was whispering secrets only he could hear. In the cool hush, Max inched forward, paws deliberate, muscles taut with hesitant resolve. Above, a solitary star flickered stubbornly through the veiled sky, a diminutive sentinel against the vast twilight. A bouquet of distant sounds unfurled, crickets twirling their evening chorus, the rustle of a nearby tree bowing to the soft wind, the gentle weave of silence between. Amid this fragile symphony, Max's heart beat with a quiet clarity, rising from the depths of fear and uncertainty. The Locket's delicate swing synced with the rhythm of his inhalation and exhalation, a metronome guiding the rhythm of an awakening spirit. Across the street, a flicker of movement caught his eye, a flash of warm light spilling from an open doorway, silhouettes faintly etched in the glow. It was not home, nor the familiar face he searched for, but it was a flame against the gathering dark. The light offered no promises but whispered possibility. Max's gaze lifted with renewed determination, the shadows growing long but his resolve stretching further still. His paws found their path beneath the weaving bronze hues of autumn, trudging on toward uncharted tomorrows, toward a hope sculpted from the echo of the Locket's gentle sway. And as the first breath of night wrapped softly around the town, Max stepped forward, casting a silhouette of yearning and quiet courage against the encroaching darkness. The journey was no longer just about finding home, it was about igniting the unyielding ember of hope that even the longest separations could never extinguish. The sun dipped low, gilding the suburban edges with a warm, amber hue that softened the sharp lines of unfamiliar streets. Max, his coat a tawny blur beneath the sprawling maples shedding autumn's first leaves, moved slowly but deliberately. His paws pressed into damp earth and cracked pavement, the rhythmic tap a slow drum of perseverance in the quiet streets. The locket dangled gently from his collar, catching the last strips of light, a flickering beacon against the encroaching twilight. His nose twitched, capturing fragments of scents carried by the soft evening breeze, fresh grass mingling with faint trails of cedar smoke, the subtle musk of children playing nearby. Somewhere within these scents lay the tender trace of home, elusive yet insistent. Max's chest heaved in a slow, steady rhythm, each breath filled with the mingling sense of hope and uncertainty. A gentle rustling drew his attention. A timid rabbit darted from beneath a tuft of goldenrod, its startled leap a reminder of the wildness that shadowed this suburban sprawl. Max's eyes, soulful and patient, followed the creature's flight, his own longing mirrored in the rabbit's desperate dash towards safety. Nearby, a strand of wind danced through a tangle of fallen leaves, curling and swirling them like whispers of the past. Max's gaze lingered on the movement, as if each leaf carried a fragment of memory, a secret piece of the puzzle that was his journey to reclaim what was lost. A sudden noise startled him. A sharp bark echoed down the lane. Max's ears perked, the familiar cadence a lifeline in the maze of disorientation. But as he turned, the fleeting shadow of a neighbor's dog disappeared behind a hedgerow, the connection lost to the hesitant dusk. The locket swayed anew, a delicate pendulum tracing invisible arcs. Max closed his eyes briefly, imprinting the sensation, the warmth of its metal against his fur, the silent promise it held. It was his compass now, a talisman of unbroken bonds stitched together by memory and love. He pressed forward, paws leaving faint imprints on soft earth near the edge of a wild meadow. The golden hour's dying light filtered through amber leaves, illuminating patches of worn grass and scattered pine cones. Mist began to settle low over the field, a velvety haze that blurred the boundary between reality and hope. Ahead, a weathered wooden bench awaited beneath a sprawling oak, its shadow pooling cool and welcoming. Max approached cautiously, muscles coiled yet yearning. There, seated quietly, was a familiar figure, a kindly old man with gentle eyes and a face carved by seasons spent beside the restless sea. The man smiled softly, his voice a gravelly whisper. "Lost, are you, friend?" Max's tail lifted, tentative joy stirring in his gaze. But as he neared, uncertainty rippled. This was no familiar touch, no warm hands of home. The old man extended a weathered hand, offering a morsel of kindness, a bridge between stranger and soul adrift. Max hesitated, then lowered himself in careful trust. "You're not alone," the man murmured, the quiet hum of evening wrapping around them like a fragile shield. But even as the moment wove itself fragile and fleeting, the sky shifted. A bank of clouds swallowed the last light, and with it, the swirling golden hues that had once beckoned hope. In the thickening dusk, Max's heart beat fiercely against unfamiliar shadows. Ahead, beyond the horizon where earth and sky blurred, a storm whispered, heralding its wild promise of chaos and change. And with the Locket's glint flickering beneath his neck, Max took his first uncertain step into the storm's embrace, the path home veiled yet inviting, a labyrinth of courage and possibility waiting to be traversed. The sky darkened imperceptibly as Max trotted cautiously toward the outskirts of town, where the familiar asphalt gave way to ragged paths veined with roots and cracked stones. The warm hues of late afternoon softened into the cold grays and blues of an encroaching storm. Each gust of wind tugged at his scruffy coat, and the persistent scent of rain mingled with the earthy aroma of fallen leaves, both comforting and unsettling, like the unknown chapters of the journey ahead. Max paused beneath an ancient oak tree, its branches trembling with the mounting breeze, leaves fluttering in nervous anticipation. The worn collar hugged his neck, the small bronze locket whispering softly against his fur, the unbroken bond anchoring him to a past growing more distant but never forgotten. A faint, elusive scent seemed to emanate from the locket, a fragile thread guiding him through uncertainty. Ahead, the prickling of tension brushed the air, shadows darted just beyond vision, the stirrings of a world both beautiful and indifferent to his quest. His paw halted atop a crossroad where the trail forked, one path winding toward dense woods thick with moss and whispers of forgotten stories, the other tracing a rocky incline scattered with thorns and jagged roots. His chest rose steadily with hope and fear entwined. A broken path lay before him, laced with peril and the promise of revelation. As Max stepped forward, a sudden rustle rippled through the underbrush. A stray dog emerged, a wiry, cautious figure with sun-bleached fur and wary eyes, its posture wary yet curious. The stranger paused, nostrils flaring as it measured Max's approach. Max stopped, muscles coiled, tail flicking uncertainly. The moment hung thick, a delicate balance between trust and threat. The stray let out a low growl, hesitant but clear. Max's eyes met the other's in spoken dialogue of survival and kinship, a fragile bridge forged from shared solitude. Slowly, with tentative grace, Max lowered himself, a silent invitation. The stray's wary stance softened, the growl fading into a quiet whine. Together, they ventured down the thorn-laced path, navigating tangled brambles and unstable earth. Though an uneasy alliance, the companionship provided warmth against the sudden chill and the weight of isolation. As shadows deepened, rain began to fall, thin droplets growing into thick sheets that soaked Max's coat and blurred the forest into a watery dreamscape. The locket clinked softly beneath his china, steady pulse amidst the storm's chaos. The tempest mirrored the turmoil growing within him, fear of losing the way intertwined with a fierce determination that refused surrender. Night descended fully as Max and the stray reached a narrow river, swollen by rain and rushing fiercely, threatening to undo their progress. The water roared like the relentless waves back home, an unforgiving force demanding fortitude and courage. Max hesitated, the uncertain path reflected in the rushing current. Trust had been fragile and tentative between him and the stranger, but necessity bound them now. Drawing a deep breath, Max leapt into the churning water, muscles straining against the torrent. The stray followed, a momentary echo of bravery illuminating the dark river. Halfway across, Max's footing slipped. Cold water surged around him, biting and unyielding. The locket swung wildly in rhythm with the thrashing current, a beacon lost in chaos, yet tethering him to hope. With dogged determination, he clawed forward, inch by desperate inch, until finally he reached the opposite bank. Exhausted but alive, he shook himself free of the storm's grip, eyes unblinking as he scanned the obscured landscape ahead. The night held its breath silent and thick as Max and the stray, drenched and transformed, faced the unknown horizon. The journey was far from over. Each step forward was a testament to resilience, to the unyielding bond that whispered within the Locket a quiet promise that even in the face of tempests, home might yet be found. And somewhere deep within the gathering darkness, a faint glimmer stirred, a spark pulsating with the possibility of dawn. The golden hour dissolved slowly, the shifting light spilling like liquid honey across a worn map cradled carefully in Max's forewarmed mouth. The delicate paper was creased and smudged but held a world of promise, a faded sketch, tender and familiar, drawn by the hand that loved him most. The locket on his collar, now a beacon pulsing softly beneath his scruff, seemed to hold the steady heartbeat of home, guiding his weary legs and restless heart. Thunder rolled deep in the distance, the sky bruising with heavy clouds, a forewarning not only of weather but of trials yet to come. Max's gaze darted upward as the first drops fell, a swift and urgent rhythm racing with the pounding of his own pulse. The rain soaked into the fabric of the world and his fur, a cold baptism washing away doubts and igniting a fierce clarity born from loss. His paws moved with hardened determination, each step a testament to the unyielding bond etched into the metal locket, a bond that transcended miles, time, and tempest. The map's lines whispered of paths hidden beneath the canopy of trees, tucked in quiet hollows and winding trails that twisted between moments of memory and mystery. Ahead, the forest breathed with ancient secrets, twisting branches reaching out like whispered cautions, shadows flickering and receding in the storm's flickering light. Max pressed forward, a lone silhouette against the creeping dusk, a beacon of perseverance on the precipice of revelation. Suddenly, a sharp, guttural growl tore through the raw, hungry sound that froze Max in his tracks. Emerging from the thickets was a wild dog, lean and fierce, eyes gleaming with territorial fire. Its snarls echoed a warning, the primal barrier between home and exile. Max's ears flattened. The locket swung like a pendulum of hope as he spaced his breaths, stilled his pounding heart. The wilderness challenged him with a gaze both threatening and unknowable, the embodiment of all the hardships woven into his arduous journey. In a moment suspended between flight and fight, Max's eyes locked onto the wild dogs, a silent communion, strength measured not in dominance but in quiet resilience. Slowly, the stranger receded into the shadows, respect mingling with caution in its retreating steps. The storm broke fully then, a downpour fierce and cleansing, drumming relentlessly upon the canopy and turning leaf-filled trails to rivers of deep brown. Max roared softly into the rain, a sound not of fear but of fierce resolve, the locket's gentle pulse a lifeline beneath tempest's fury. Continuing onward, soaked and shivering, Max's paws discovered the contours of a hidden path etched faintly in the mud. As he followed it, the rain washed clean the world's edge, the chorus of the storm a rhythm intertwining with the heartbeat within the locket. The map, once fragile and uncertain, blossomed into a living guide, its ink lines tracing the threads that wove his path closer home. Each step was a victory carved from grit and hope, a small candle defiantly lit against the gathering storm. Lightning flickered briefly, illuminating the labyrinthine woodland, unveiling the outlines of a distant river crossing a final barrier singed by the wild, a trial that would demand every ounce of courage and heart. Max inhaled sharply, the locket against his chest like a steady drum of love and belonging. He was no longer a lost creature adrift but a warrior guided by memory and connection. As the storm raged and shadows danced with lightning, Max pressed on, drawn forward by the fragile map and the unwavering rhythm of the locket. Each beat a promise that home was no longer a dream but a destination within reach. The sky roiled with angry clouds, their heavy mass blotting out the sun's warmth and casting the world into early twilight. Rain hammered the earth with relentless insistence, a symphony of chaos that drowned the distant rumble of thunder. Max's paws splashed through the rising puddles, the cold water soaking his coat, dragging the heat from his body with every hesitant step. The storm was no longer an external force alone. Its fury mirrored the tempest tearing through his heart. The map, a lifeline, a path etched by his owner's Karahan, slipped from his collar during the violent squall, carried away by the wind in a series of cruel dances atop the flooding streets. Max's frantic nose scoured the sodden ground, desperate for a trace amid the swirling debris, but each sniff led only to the hollow absence that spread like a shadow within. His soulful eyes glistened with the cold sheen of fear and loss, the familiar scents gone with the map, and with them, the fragile thread connecting him to the place he called home. He wagged his tail weakly, a futile gesture in the face of encroaching despair. The locket swayed against his neck, now the sole tether to a past growing distant and out of reach. Max pressed it instinctively with his snout, as if to draw strength from the unbroken bond it symbolized. Thunder crashed close, shaking the sheltering trees as winds ripped at leaves and branches. Max lowered his head, ears flattened, muscles tense and trembling with fatigue and confusion. The relentless storm carved the world into harsh lines and shadows, blurring edges and eroding the boundaries between memory and present struggle. Around him, the world felt vast and indifferent, a sprawling wilderness that mirrored his growing isolation. The rain swallowed sound, muting the desperate calls and hurried footsteps, a landscape drained of safety and certainty. Max's breath was ragged, a faint whimper lost beneath the storm's roar. In the distance, the faint glow of streetlights flickered like tentative stars against the swollen gray sky, a fragile reminder that life persisted beyond the tempest's grasp. Max curled beneath the scant shelter of a broken bridge, paws digging into the cold, muddy earth. The locket, a steady presence against his chest, was both comfort and torment, a whisper of hope mingled with the ache of separation. His eyes closed briefly, the weight of the journey pressing down like the storm around him. The locket's gentle swing slowed as the wind settled, a moment suspended in bittersweet stillness. But the silence was a shroud, an enveloping darkness that mirrored the despair threatening to consume him. And as the rain pattered softly on the damp ground, Max's heart faltered beneath the crushing uncertainty, a soul caught between the fading warmth of love and the cold abyss of loss. The night pressed down on Max with a crushing weight, squeezing all the warmth from the air until only a bitter chill lingered. Beneath the cracked concrete bridge, the world was stripped to shadows and muted silence, except for the steady drip of water seeping through old cracks overhead. The relentless echo played against the hollow vastness, a haunting rhythm that matched the heavy thump of Max's heart. His paws curled inward beneath him as he lay low, body trembling beneath the heavy cloak of despair that had settled deep within. The locket hung loosely against his fur, swinging faintly with each shallow breath, a fragile pendulum marking the passage of time in a realm where hope seemed all but extinguished. Max's eyes, once bright with yearning and fierce determination, were now weary pools staring blankly ahead into the void. The chaotic storms raging inside had tamed themselves into a slow, creeping numbness that spread through his veins like frozen rivers. Each heavy breath was colder than the last, misting in the cold air like ghosts of warmth fading away. Around him, the city's distant lights blurred and wavered through the nighttime haze, their glow negligible in the cavernous dark beneath the bridge. Shadows pooled thick and still, swallowing edges and forms until nothing was sharp, only softened outlines swallowed by heavy emptiness. The pounding rain slowed to a hesitant drizzle, dripping steadily from jagged concrete edges onto the muddy ground, and then to stillness. The world seemed caught in suspended breath, a fragile pause before further unraveling. Max's head lowered toward the earth, nose twitching faintly to the scentless air. The small locket, a symbol of a bond unbroken but stretched thin, glinted once against the scattered fading light, then rested in quiet stillness. It was both anchor and reminder of what had seemed almost lost. A silent whimper escaped him, soft enough to blend with the hollow echoes. No answer came, only the cold, unyielding night. The roaring chaos of the storm, the deafening noises of the past, had finally faltered into a dense and suffocating silence. Each flicker of memory now intertwined with loss, the struggles, the kind gestures that had once sparked hope, all felt like distant echoes in a vast empty chamber. Max remained still, his world reduced to the damp earth beneath him, the faint sway of the locket, and the oppressive silence wrapping tight around him like a shroud. The night stretched onward, cold, endless, and still bearing witness to a soul caught at the brink of surrender, suspended in a moment where the light of home felt unbearably distant, and all roads seemed swallowed by shadows. Beneath the cold refuge of a crumbling bridge, Max curled into himself like a faded shadow, the rough concrete pressing into his side through the thin layer of fur. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean but raw, quiet, shrouded in mist and the lingering scent of rain and earth. His breath steamed faintly in the cool air, rhythmic and shallow, a fragile tether anchoring him to the present. The locket hung limp against his chest, its small metallic surface dulled by dust and journey. Max's eyes, vast pools reflecting both the weight of the path behind and the uncertain road ahead, lingered on it, a beacon for a bond stretched thin but unbroken. His weary paws curled tightly, seeking the comfort that memory alone could offer. A distant bird called through the fog, a plaintive cry that echoed like a whisper of life in the quiet. Max's ears flicked at the sound, the faintest stir of a pulse beneath the ash of despair. Slowly, he lifted his head, nostrils flaring as he sought the breath of familiar earth. The scent was faint, fragile as the first bloom of spring, but unmistakable, a fleeting echo of home. His gaze narrowed, pupils dilating as the promise teased the edges of the fog that clouded his mind. With deliberate care, Max shifted, the movement slight but filled with determination. His gaze fixed on a small, trembling leaf caught in a stray shaft of golden light filtering through the bridge's cracked masonry. The leaf danced and twirled in the gentle breeze, a solitary world of motion and hope within the stillness. The flicker of sunlight on the leaf mirrored a spark deep within him, a fragile flame barely kindled but steady against the night's chill. Max's breath caught, a soft whine lost beneath the broad silence. In that quiet, a stirring returned, a hesitant pulse of resilience, awoken not by certainty but by the silent possibility whispered through the locket's steady beat against his heart. His eyes lifted once again toward the shadows beyond the bridge, deep woods where light wavered and paths tangled. The scent of home, fragile and true, beckoned him onward. Though his body ached and the world felt vast and uncertain, the spark within began to blaze. No words were spoken, no grand declarations needed. The language was in the slow, steady wag of his tail, the gathering strength in his limbs, the promise in the quiet resolve that filled the space between despair and hope. And in the tranquil glow, Max rose, the locket gleaming faintly against the waning dusk, a silent vow to press forward. The path was still shrouded, the journey far from over, but amid the shadows of loss, the smallest light had returned. The bridge's cold stone echoed softly as he stepped from the shelter of refuge, paws finding firm earth, heart steady as the familiar rhythm pulsing within. The storm had passed, and the way forward shimmered faintly ahead. The horizon shimmered with a soft, amber glow as the first light of dawn gently bled through the broken branches of the thick woods. Max, soaked and shivering, stood on the edge of a narrow clearing, gaze fixed on the faintest outline of his neighborhood just beyond the treetops. The storm had passed, leaving a hush of silence that only nature's whisper could claim. His fur, damp and tangled, clung to his lithe frame, but his eyes possessed a new spark, an ember of hope flickering against the darkness of despair. He snorted softly, shaking off the residual rain, sending droplets shimmering in the morning sun. The worn collar around his neck felt heavier than ever, the small locket nestled against his chest a fragile anchor, a symbol of the unbroken bond that had kept his spirit alive through the chaos. Its petite surface gleamed faintly, catching the first rays of sunlight as if to remind him of the promise still waiting to be fulfilled. The world before him stirred with awakening life-chirping birds, the rustle of dry leaves dancing in the gentle breeze, and the distant hum of a waking countryside. Each sound was a heartbeat, a reminder that life continued despite the storm's chaos. Max's paws moved slowly, deliberate and cautious, across the dew-kissed grass, towing the line between uncertainty and renewal. The path ahead wound between the trees like a ribbon of possibility, leading toward the edge of his familiar town. His nose twitched as faint scents wafted through the cool air, earth, grass, the distant scent of a human dwelling, small whispers of home calling him forward. His heart pounded softly, echoing the gentle rhythm of hope, a fragile but persistent drive to push beyond the shadows of loss. His paws found a steady rhythm, each step a delicate testament to resilience. With every stride, he shed the remnants of doubt cast by the storm, receiving instead a quiet reassurance, a luminous glow emerging from within. The light grew brighter, spilling over his scruffy coat, warming his fur like a promise of new beginnings. Ahead, the familiar outline of an old fence marked the boundary of what he knew. The broken boards, weathered and leaning, seemed to sway in a welcoming dance, whispering silent encouragement. Max approached with slow reverence, nostrils flaring, drawing in the faintest whiffs of comfort, familiar scents mingled with the promise of redemption. The locket nestled against his chest pulsed gently, a heartbeat of hope amid the gentle dawn. He paused, chin up, eyes closing briefly to anchor himself into this moment of fragile awakening. Memories flickered, games with his owner, the warmth of cuddles, the unspoken promise of unconditional love, each one fueling his determination. In that stillness, a subtle shift occurred, an unspoken acknowledgement that even in the depths of despair, resilience could spark anew. The storm had passed, the shadows receding. The journey was far from over, yet for the first time in days, Max believed in the possibility of home. With a slow, steady breath, he moved forward, each paw step a gentle declaration of happy and unyielding vow to keep moving until the horizon and the heart united once more. The sunrise bathed the landscape in a golden hue, a tender cloak of promise wrapping around him as he pressed on, uncertain but unbroken. The rapid rush of the river's current roared in Max's ears, a deafening testament to nature's raw power. Fragments of his torn map floated past him, bits of ink and paper torn away by the storm or swept downstream. His paws scrambled desperately against the slick stones, muscles straining as he fought the relentless flow. Every heartbeat hammered like thunder, a primal drumbeat fueling his will to survive and press on. The crossing was a brutal test of courage and instinct, the water clawing at his collar and flinging him against jagged rocks. His breath came in short, ragged gasps, eyes wide with both fear and fierce determination. The storm battered the landscape into chaos, trees bent low, and rain blurred the world into a swirling canvas of dark blues and smoky grays. But amid the chaos, Max's unyielding spirit ignited. With a mighty push, he launched himself onto the opposite bank, trembling but alive. The land was uneven, treacherous yet familiar. This was the neighborhood he once knew, a patchwork of childhood memories and abandoned landmarks. For a moment, exhaustion dulled his senses, and he staggered, trembling with every breath. Yet, in the haze of fatigue and rain-drenched fur, a faint scent, just a whisper in the wind, flickered through his nose like a spark. It was the unmistakable aroma of his home, of safety, of love waiting beyond this storm. Driven by this fragile thread of hope, Max's paws found new purpose. His heart pounded wildly, matching the rhythm of the storm's fury as he tore down familiar streets, now strewn with scattered leaves and fallen branches. His nose led him through the remnants of a place once full of life, now eerily quiet, but his focus sharpened. As he pushed past a crumbling fence, a distant flicker of golden light seeped through the rain, soft and steadfast, like the promise of home. Max's eyes widened, tears almost blurring his vision, but he kept moving, every step a victory over the chaos that had threatened to drown him. Familiar landmarks, a broken signpost, a familiar bend, the sight of a battered mailbox rushed toward him in a blur. His mind raced, each recall a heartbeat, each memory promising that the end was near. The scent grew stronger, more insistent, urgent as the pounding of his paws on the wet ground. He slowed for a moment beneath a tree, chest heaving, but the locket hanging from his collar swayed gently in the brisk wind, a silent torch illuminating his path through the storm. In that pause, Max looked upward, the rain pelting his face, and saw the faint glow of a porch light, an anchor to salvation. A surge of hope burst within him. His legs, trembling and worn, carried him faster, lungs burning, heart pounding harder than ever. His fur matted with rain and mud, yet every nerve screamed determination. The familiar scent, the real hope, it was real, both a balm and a challenge. He crossed the final stretch, shaking, exhausted, but unbroken, until the silhouette of his home loomed ahead, its windows glowing softly through the storm. Max's breath hitched, tears threatening to overtake him, but he pressed forward with renewed vigor, driven by an unshakable truth: the journey of resilience, of love persevering against all odds, was finally nearing its fulfillment. The storm had quieted, leaving behind a luminous glow that bathed the landscape in a warm, golden haze. Max stood atop a familiar hill, muscles tense but spirits renewed by the clarity of purpose flowing through him. His coat, damp and tousled from the rain, caught the glow of the setting, soon a testament to resilience, fortitude, and the awakening of hope. In the distance, the silhouette of his neighborhood beckoned, a place once shrouded in chaos, now bathed in gentle light. Max's eyes, soulful and unyielding, absorbed every familiar scent: the faint aroma of flowers, the distant scent of his owner's home, all woven into the air like a promise reborn. His collar, worn but steadfast, clinked softly as he moved, the tiny locket dangling, a quiet symbol of that unbreakable bond, now illuminated by the soft day's end. He felt it ache with silent reassurance, the weight of the love that could withstand storms, journey, and time. Every step was deliberate, each paw striking the earth with unwavering resolve. The landscape now felt alive with hope. Leaves fluttered in the gentle breeze, their rustling like whispered encouragement. Max's nose twitching, guided by the scent of home, he pushed forward, the familiar landmarks emerging through the hazy glow, each a marker of strength and perseverance. Faintly, a memory stirred, a flash of the joyful moments shared with his owner. Hopeful mornings, quiet evenings, the unspoken promise of love's enduring power. That memory fueled his final push, the storm within him quiet now, replaced by a steady, unshakable purpose. Ahead, the familiar sight of the old fence, slightly leaning now but resilient, announced that the goal was near. Max's heart pounded with a fierce but gentle urgency as he approached the last stretch, the threshold of home. The scent intensified, a pure and unfiltered calling, a sign that the journey was reaching its climax. He approached the fence with slow, measured steps, ears pricked and tail high, drawing breath as he crossed into the open space where his childhood memories and future reunions awaited. The golden hour caressed him, bathing him in a light that seemed to lift away all doubts, any shadows of despair. And then, with one final surge of strength, Max broke into a gentle but powerful sprint, paws pounding the earth that held his roots. His breath came heavy but joyful, a symphony of perseverance and hope, until he reached the porch, where a figure waited silently. The moment stretched timeless and poignant as eyes finally met across the distance. The true revolution, the reunion, began. The tense silence was shattered by the whisper of footsteps as the figure opened their arms, and Max, with a joyful yelp, launched himself into the embrace, the unbroken locket swaying gently in the evening breeze. The storm had passed, and in that light, all shadows dissolved into the dawn of a new beginning, the unbreakable bond renewed, and the journey of love and resilience complete. The golden light of dawn spilled softly over the park, casting a tranquil glow on the winding paths and the lush greenery. Max, now older and wiser, sat peacefully beneath a sprawling oak tree. His fur was streaked with silver, and the slight scruff around his face told tales of countless adventures, each one etched into his soul, yet gentle and serene in this moment of quiet reflection. The locket worn but steadfast swayed lightly on his collar, catching the sun's tender rays. It was a silent testament to the bond that had sustained him through storms and solitude, a fragile link woven into the fabric of enduring love. Max's soulful eyes, soft and knowing, watched children laughing and playing, their innocence shimmering like hope reborn. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves, whispering stories of resilience and renewal. Max lifted his nose, inhaling deeply, catching the faint scent of blooming flowers and fresh-cut grass, reminders of simpler days and the unbreakable bond guiding him home. His mind drifted, not in despair but in tender gratitude. Every step, every stumble, every moment had led him here, to this quiet place of acceptance. He moved his head slowly, resting it on his paws, the familiar landscape around him a canvas of serenity, echoing a journey well traveled. The storm had long since passed, and the chaos was replaced by a profound calm, a silent acknowledgement that love transcends time and distance. In the distance, the world buzzed softly with life, the rustling of leaves, the distant call of birds, the laughter from children's play. It was as if the universe whispered that everything was in its perfect place. Max closed his eyes briefly, the warmth of the sun enveloping him like a comforting embrace. His paws relaxed, a soft sigh escaping him as memories of moments shared with his owner flickered in his mind, gentle strokes, joyful runs, quiet companionship. Embracing those memories, he found a deep, unshakable peace, knowing in his heart that love's unbreakable bond had endured beyond storms and storms within. Slowly, Max lifted his head again, gazing at the horizon where the sky kissed the earth in hues of pink and gold. The gentle light seemed to affirm a truth: home was not just a place, but a state of being, a harmony rooted in love and resilience. With one last, contented breath, he rose, stretching slowly, the echoes of his journey reverberating within, calm now, yet alive with quiet purpose. As the scene lingered, the camera drew back, capturing the tranquil serenity of the moment, the peaceful park, the memory-soaked dog, and the unspoken promise of a love that had forever transcended separation. Max's silhouette against the dawn, still and full of hope, faded into the light, an eternal symbol of hope, home, and the silent wisdom that love's journey never truly ends. The late afternoon sun stretched its golden arms across the park, casting long, warm shadows over the scene that had become a quiet testament to reconciliation. Max, now older, sat contentedly beneath the sprawling branches of an ancient tree, his coat brushed with silver and his eyes reflecting a depth born from love's enduring power. His head rested softly against his owner's lap, the gentle sway of the breeze causing the small locket hanging from his collar to catch the light, a delicate symbol of hope and eternal bond. The space around them was filled with tranquility, the soft hum of children playing, the rustling leaves, and the distant chime of a bell. All noise faded into a gentle melody of peace, of stories shared in silence and hearts mended by time. Max lifted a paw, resting it lightly on his owner's hand, the touch gentle but unbreakable, a silent pledge of love that had traversed lullabies, storms, and endless miles. His owner's fingers stroked his fur softly, a quiet caress that spoke of forgiveness and understanding. The years of separation had stitched wounds, yes, but in this moment, all pain dissolved into tenderness, the dawn of a true reunion that transcended suffering and time. As the sun dipped lower, casting a warm amber glow across their shared space, a profound sense of serenity settled in. Max closed his eyes briefly, absorbing the stillness, feeling the unspoken words and silent promises cocooning their bond. The locket, ever swaying in the breeze, was a fragile reminder that love, regardless of distance or hardship, never truly faded. A gentle smile touched his owner's lips. "We're finally here," they whispered softly, their voice thick with emotion. Max's tail flicked with a quiet happiness, a gentle wag that captured the essence of resilience. His heart was full, a testament to perseverance and the unbreakable link forged through loyalty, hopes, and countless shared memories. In the lingering light, the camera pulled back slowly, capturing the scene's quiet majesty and image of enduring love amid a world that teetered between chaos and calm. The tree's branches stretched outward, embracing the scene like a guardian of love's eternal promise. And as the golden hour waned into gentle twilight, the peaceful park became a sanctuary of hope, a timeless space where love's victory was etched softly into the fabric of a shared forever. The golden hour cast a tender glow, painting the park in hues of amber and soft pink as the last light lingered on the horizon. Max, an older dog with lines etched by time yet alive with a gentle wisdom, settled beneath a large, sprawling tree. His coat, now touched by streaks of silver, shimmered faintly in the serene sunlight. The locket around his neck, worn but steadfast, gently swayed with every subtle movement, a silent echo of unbroken love. He rested his head on his owner's lap, feeling the warmth of the touch and the beat of a heart that had traveled across storms and silence to find him once more. The faint scent of blooming flowers, mingled with the familiar smell of grass and earth, filled the quiet space, creating a cocoon of peace and belonging. Children played nearby, their carefree laughter a distant murmur that seemed to dance around him. The breeze carried the soft rustling of leaves, whispering stories of resilience, hope, and love's everlasting bond. Max's eyes half-closed, capturing the tranquil moment, a quiet closing chapter, a gentle affirmation that love, once steadfast, endures beyond the storms and the distance. The unbreakable locket caught the fading light, a tiny symbol of hope still glowing in the twilight, a reminder that even in life's quiet moments, the love that unites us remains eternal. Max looked around, his gaze lingering on the horizon where the sun kissed the sky goodnight, and in that silent reverence, he felt at peace, whole, loved, and finally home. The camera slowly pulled away, capturing the tableau of serenity, an old dog resting in the tender glow of dusk, the world gently silent, preserved in a moment of pure, everlasting love. The scene faded to soft focus, a gentle testament to the enduring bond that had defied all odds, a lasting imprint on the fabric of time and memory. Have you ever experienced a reunion that changed your life? Share your story with us.